on computer. Okay. Hi, how are you? This is Damaris Maria Grossman, Integrative Family Nurse Practitioner, and this is Mindfully Integrative Show. And today we have an amazing guest, one of a great colleague, mentor, friend. She is an expert in family nurse practitioner, telehealth, and she has her own practice. And she's also an amazing integrative health provider. And she has a wonderful story. So I can't wait for you to meet her, Veronica Pike Max, and she has a beautiful family. So Veronica, thank you and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Damaris. It's funny, you're the only person I think that's ever gotten my name right. And that's like kind of my fault because I've made it really confusing. I've been married for 8 years, but I just now changed my last name to Max recently. And then my Facebook has always said, like for a long time, it just said Veronica Lee, which is my middle name. So kudos to you for you really did your research to get that one right.
I feel like I've followed and worked with you for a while. So I feel like, Pike is your original name, right? Or maiden name?
Pike is my maiden name. Max is my married name, and Lee is my middle name. And
nice.
When I was working in the hospital a long time ago, I just like dropped my last name on Facebook and put Lee, because
cool. Yeah, I go Damaris Maria. Yeah, I changed mine too because it's like after a while.
Everybody's confused and it's my own fault. And I still like professionally, I haven't changed my name on my license yet. So have to do that soon. But anyway, yeah.
So what is a fun fact about you that people might not know about you? Obviously your name, that's one.
Yeah, but there we go with that. I don't know. I played Division I basketball. So
very athletic.
That might be something. Yeah. So I was an athlete for all of my life. I actually competed after basketball was, kind of lost and didn't know where to put my energy. So I started doing CrossFit and competed, at regionals and CrossFit, a few years ago. So
that's been your thing. That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I actually, that's, again, we can kind of get into this, but part of my personal, I was doing a lot of compensation for some things that were missing internally with, external, winning competitions and sports and athletics and academics and
achieving
achievements. Exactly. Right. And keeping busy and pushing myself with all those things. So it's funny. So yeah, there's, pictures on the internet of me, like, I was about 25 pounds of muscle heavier than I am now. So pretty ripped. But I have not, I still have a membership to a CrossFit gym that my friend owns, but I just show up and, for me, it's a win to show up to the gym these days. I do love being active and working out. I mean, that's always been part of my life. And I think that's important, but I just don't have the, the desire it was the drive for competition, for finishing the workout first or, winning.
Gotcha.
Or even when I was pregnant, I wanted to beat everybody else in the gym, right? Even the men, right? So, and I did on most days, but, I don't have, that's that external motivation. I don't need that anymore. And so, yeah, my interests have just changed a bit.
What was that? Must have been quite challenging being pregnant, being able to still show up everybody.
Hey, I mean, at that point in time, I was, like I said, I was just a 6 foot kind of lean but muscular, and it's just kind of what I had always done, pushing myself and kind of ignoring. I was a bit disconnected from my body, and so that's an advantage, right? If you're an athlete, which I was, but that's a disadvantage as far as leading a happy, healthy life.
How do you what do you mean by that? Like being that, I consider you, obviously you've are well-rounded overall. I mean, obviously we all have stories and things that have gone on in life to kind of transition you to be more athletic. So you're saying that one aspect, your physical body, you were doing well, but your emotional, your mental health and your overall health, you were working on.
Well, so, that's the funny thing, right? Like if you'd asked me a few years ago, if I was happy, healthy, and I've always been, I've been fortunate enough. I've been, and not just fortunate. I hate saying that because I think, that precludes the effort that I put into, I careful, I pay attention to what I eat, right? I make sure that I move my body, I'm conscious of all of these things, right? Because good health doesn't just happen on accident, right? A lot of people like to say, oh, well, you just have good genes. And
No,
sure,
yeah.
genetics is part of it, right? But it's not the full picture. In fact, I think what we're learning and what will kind of be shown in the future is that really genetics is a much smaller part of it than we think, because we're learning all about epigenetics, turning on and off gene expression with our environment and lifestyle. So anyways, I think, consciously, I thought that I was, I felt good consciously. But really, when I started, I got to a point where, a very low point, and I had, I had all of the achievements that I thought I needed to really be happy. Because the thing that was, I guess, that was consistent, that I was aware of in my life, is that I always felt that I was working. This started from a very early age, probably high school, or maybe no, middle school is what I remember really use this particular pattern. But like, for instance, I worked my ass off, practicing and training for basketball and track in the gym. Because the goal was, right, to get an athletic scholarship. And really my reason for getting an athletic scholarship, because I was worried, growing up, there was always a lot of tension in my household about finances, right? And so I was like, well, I'm not going to cause extra tension. So I want to get a scholarship, and I was good at athletics, so athletic scholarship. And so work. So I get an athletic scholarship, and then I achieve that, right? And it's work, so that I can, do well in college, and, and then it's the next thing. So it was this illusion, right? That okay, I'm not going to live now. I'm going to work my ass off now, because for something in the future.
Yeah.
But that's an illusion, because you're never, all we have is the present. And so if you're not enjoying it, you'll get through the end of your life and, chasing that carrot that you never arrived at. Right. So that was the thing I was aware of, that I noticed that pattern repeating itself. And so, and, obviously having businesses, that was another work to get it to a certain point. And then having, but that's a stressor too. That's, I put a lot, there were weeks I was working, 100 hours or so, because I had problems delegating and with my first business. I made mistakes like that, which were, as a result, I always say there's no business mistakes or business problems. They're all emotional problems that just manifest in different areas of your life, including business, including your personal relationships, your professional relationships, etc.
Yeah.
And, becoming a mother, that's another stressor too. I became a mother when my first business was, really taking off. Became a mother at the same time.
You're a mom of 3 and
Yeah, exactly.
you have multiple businesses.
Yeah. So, and, and I remember, like, when I was pregnant, so kind of for me, the real, like, low point was I was pregnant with my second child. And I remember, basically, I went into labor like 2.5 weeks early. I had premature rupture of membranes. I have with all of my kids for whatever reason. But have been able to have home births, was able to get labor going. But with my second, she came 2.5 weeks early, and I don't think I was connected, like, my entire, like, if you would have asked me if I was pregnant, I had no idea that I was pregnant, like, I was so busy working, I was not connected with myself, and therefore, wasn't connected with her. And then it's just like, whoa, I remember, like, I'm having a baby. Like, I wouldn't, like, whoa, where'd the last 9 months go,
Yeah.
And so, all of those things, which always felt, for me inside, I felt conflicted, as there's always this pull, like, between myself and between, my businesses and being a mom. And I've always felt conflicted and pulled apart. So that was the thing, if you'd asked me, but otherwise, I never presented as I've never, I've never had depression or anxiety. I've never, or any of those things. I would have never told you that. But really the thing was I was disassociating from all of my not only my body, but my feelings,
You didn't want to feel, you didn't really want to have that feelings. Yeah.
Well, exactly. It wasn't even a conscious that I didn't want to have. I mean, it was because because of traumas in my life, very early, I learned to, one of the things that my dad taught me very young was that, crying, we don't cry, showing crying is showing weakness, and we don't do that.
Mm,
And that's just one example because people think that trauma, right, is, oh, yeah, I saw someone get shot, or,
right.
um, or I was raped or something like that. And those are what I consider big T
Yeah, those
traumas
are
or
big
shock
ones, but
trauma.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
things that affect you.
There's also,
Emotional.
yeah, I mean, there's relational trauma, which is simply like in that instance, um, you know, um, my father not being able to, just because he wasn't able to connect with that, and those emotions felt threatening to him because he didn't have that support growing up, like not having an adult container to feel those things, and in fact being told that I can't feel those things, that
That
that,
must
that I
have
would
been
be
so hard.
rejected. I mean, so many people go through this, right? But just things like that, right? That I learned to stuff my feelings. And the thing about that is, when you don't feel your feelings, they don't go away.
No. Yeah.
That you carry them, we store them in our body. There's a lot of great books about this. The
The
body keeps
somatic
the
energy.
score.
Yes.
Exactly. Somatic experiencing is a type of talk therapy that I'm a huge fan of. But yeah, we store this stuff, right? That's what we're learning. And that's how, so like, as I've been doing this work, right, over the past, I've been doing self work since 2013, but really over the past 2 years I've got a new therapist
Mhm.
that's just exceptional, right? And found some other healers that have really, helped me take things,
To another level.
because I right, exactly. I'd kind of only skimmed the surface in the past, and because there's a lot of therapists out there.
Yeah.
Most
Yeah.
therapists are not good.
No, no, no. So I had to do about 10 to 12 years for myself, I would say.
Okay.
And then I mean that like all anything from acupuncture, yoga
Mhm.
therapy,
Yeah.
like physical work,
There's lots of
mental
different
work.
modalities,
Yeah, so there's
right?
a lot of
Yep.
different parts of the equation. And that's why I think I came into this like passion integrative health project, because I was just like, people don't get it. It's so more complicated than a pill.
Correct.
And
No,
you're
I mean,
seeing
and
you're going
that's
through this right now, and I admire you for talking about it, because I know that you're such a strong woman, and you're doing wonderful work, and then to be able to be placed, talking about your vulnerabilities right now, that's a lot.
well,
And I'm glad that
thank you.
you're going through the healing process.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's I really believe that it's important that we share, because that's, you know, um, everything that's going on in the world right now, there's a lot of different perspectives on that, right? And if you
Mhm.
follow me on
Right,
social
right,
media, you
right.
probably know my perspective on it. And I think really it's just a symptom of a lot of a traumatized society, that is projecting out into the world rather than looking at their own shadows. And so I really do believe that the way that we change, and I don't like what's going on in the world right now,
Yeah.
but I can't change that. What I can control and work on is myself.
Hmm.
And by working on myself, I'm able to show up differently. Um, and that and so and people see that, right? And and able to share through sharing my journey. That's how people relate through story. People learn through story.
100%. That's
Yep.
kind of where this passion project came out, because
Yeah.
my story was so hard, and it would
Yep.
and as I talked to you about your thing, and I know you're going through a lot, and like I said, 10, 12 years, but I work on it every single day.
Yeah, no, I mean,
every single day.
I don't think there's an end to the
Right.
healing journey, right?
But you're growing. You're
Yeah,
growing.
no, absolutely. And I have like the person that I was 2 years ago is almost, I'm not a different person, but I'm a more whole person, and I'm now connected whereas I was disconnected before. I'm now connected to my, whether you want to call it your true self or your higher self or your God
That's
self,
beautiful.
and so um, um, people are able to see that, and that's how we change the world through our own work and being able to integrate our shadow and look at ourselves like, oh, when I'm mad at someone else or someone else is annoying me or whatever, it's because I'm seeing something in them that is reminding me of something I don't like about me,
Mhm.
um, so um, so I think, I think that's why this work is so important. And also as far as it's related to, the business and the work that we do in the world, what I've seen is that there's always, kind of like I was talking about with my pregnancy. So as I shared with you, I'm about 3 months pregnant right now. And my first trimester has been really tough. A lot of not just fatigue, but also a lot of like physical discomfort. And part of that is because I've been processing a lot of grief about my relationship with my mother. Letting go of the fact that she was not the mother that I needed as a child, right? And she may never, be that. And it's grieving that, that mother that
The mother
I,
you wanted
but it
for.
needed one, but didn't have.
Mhm.
And and that is deep, deep pain. I never understood. I remember telling my therapist once, like, I don't really know that. I mean, yeah, I'm sad. I don't know. Like, I'm not sure. I've heard the word grief, but I don't really sure. I'm not sure I understand the different. What's the difference between grief and sadness? And I just had not at that point in time developed. I was just getting into exploring my emotions because I'd shut
Mhm.
those down for the majority of my life. But now, I mean, I truly understand what grief is. It's a whole different level of, and to me, I mean, it really feels like physical pain. It's a very deep, deep wounding. Um, so I think, so where I was going with that, that was manifesting physically. Like I would actually like grief. If you read I've got a big old book that, I forget the name. Maybe it's over here. I think it is.
I know I
Yeah,
see a lot of your
hold on.
books.
Let me grab it real quick.
Oh, sure. No worries. Yeah, grief is a big factor in life in general. What is this? What is this? Must be a yoga book. No, it's a grief book.
All right. So I love this book.
Let me see. Let's see. Oh, wow. It's
The
nice and
big
thick.
textbook,
Ooh, psychology meeting. What's it called? Messages from the
messages from the body. So it's really
Michael
cool.
Lincoln. Oh,
Yeah.
I'll have to
So
pick that
yeah.
up.
So like grief, if you look up different, you can look up any diagnoses,
Yeah.
hepatitis, Graves' disease, um, lung issues. So if you look at like pneumonia and things, so apparently like grief is stored generally in the lungs in this area, right? And so I've had experiences where I've like releasing grief, and I've had pain like after I've released pain in this region, like literally it's coming out of my body. Um, and I know that sounds so hippy dippy. Like if I
No,
could
no.
hear
Well, you're talking
myself
to
talk,
I mean, at this point in my career, I feel like this point in
yeah.
my life, I don't think anything's hippie. I feel like it's all interconnected in some manner.
Mhm.
So I'm a big I completely get it. And I
Yeah,
don't completely get it, meaning I understand it and I'm still learning
sure.
myself, but
Well,
I do.
I don't think we have I really don't think we have the ability to completely get it. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I've definitely gotten the
But
message before, like, oh, that cute little human brain, like,
mhm.
these human creatures. Like I get the feeling that we're this like relatively lowly evolved species,
Yeah.
and our capacity to even really understand about the world and the universe is really so limited. It's almost kind of like funny. But I guess what I was
But with
going
the
with, so
body, I mean, it's so amazing. Like you're saying, the psychology of like our mental health and the words so our illnesses are connected, and they talk about it. Each cells are so
yes,
interconnected.
exactly. So where this has like come into my work, right? Our professional work is that, I understand, and then I started seeing after, I've worked with patients for like the last 10 years or so, as a nurse practitioner, right? But like certainly every chronic disease, especially autoimmune
Oh,
diseases,
for sure.
cancer, they always have an emotional
Depression, anxiety,
component. Oh, of course. I mean, we treat depression, anxiety, insomnia as like
all the
primary
time with a pill.
etiologies. Right. Well, yes, we treat it with a pill, and yes, oh, this is something wrong with you. Well, no, that's a symptom. It's the
Right.
body trying to tell us, trying to
Right.
communicate with us, because I truly believe that the body makes no mistakes. The body is infinitely wise. And all of these symptoms that we have that Western medicine teaches us to just medicate with a pill, right?
Right.
That these symptoms, this is our body's way of communicating to us that something is wrong or something needs our attention, right? And it's a great travesty in my mind that we then medicate these symptoms away, and then of course we just continue to break down. And really, I mean, I shouldn't even use that terminology. It's not breaking down, it's
Right.
the body. Oh, well, you didn't listen to my subtle message, and so I'm going to have to send you a louder and louder message until you listen. But unfortunately, we're not taught that. We're taught that this is a normal, we break down, these are aberrant things that happen, and they just need to be treated with drugs. And, um, but what I have learned is that, these are messages, like people with thyroid issues, right? Oftentimes it's because they're not speaking their voice. They haven't spoken their voice, right? They've held that in. And that manifests physically with thyroid disease often. I mean, and I think that's what it says in here if you look this up. So this is just cool. It's cool for, sometimes I have patients, I'm like, I just want to kind of understand, from a
Yeah.
psychological, emotional perspective, what might be going on here.
And it's not
And
voodoo. You know what I mean? It's like real stuff and real like,
no,
and when it comes out, I
this
definitely
is a
think I'm going to pick up.
PhD.
Yeah.
This
I'm
is a
going to,
PhD that wrote this book. Now, this
I
stuff
think
is
that
not, this is not like, uh, you know, um, out there, like fringe
esoteric.
stuff.
Mhm.
No, like trauma, the research coming out about trauma, we know now, you've probably the most well publicized in research, is about ACEs, adverse childhood events. But those only really take into account shock trauma. And we know that, ACEs, I forget what the score over, if your score over a certain number, I forget what it is. I know you can score on a 0 to, I think it's 10. I think it's a
Mhm.
0 to 10 scale. But if you score over a certain number, you are, twice as likely to develop heart disease.
Right.
You have a 70% increased likelihood of, having an early death. I mean, we know that there are these, physical correlations.
Mhm.
So, I mean, there's a ton of stuff coming out about this. So it's by no means is it fringe. It's just that, this doesn't fit into
Normal box of Western medicine.
the paradigm of Western medicine, right? And
And you
it's
take it to
also,
an integrative approach now with your practice. You've been, well, not just for yourself, and then now you've
well,
been
I don't know. So yeah, exactly. So I don't know
combination.
how I could do otherwise, right? It would
That's how I
be,
feel. I don't know. Like once I've opened the box, I felt once I've learned it for myself, I can't not
you
do
can't
it.
not share that, because it's like it's a not like it that I mean I don't know
Yeah.
how to be, just like, I got into functional medicine before I even started down this path, just because that just
Mhm.
made sense to me, because I always thought
Right.
it, even as a teenager I had acne, and so I was always I guess my dad was very much had an open mind, was an out of box thinker. And so I was always, tinkering with diet and doing research and seeing what I could do. And, and I remember going to the dermatologist and they're like, oh yeah, what you eat doesn't have any impact on your skin. And I'm like, that
That doesn't
doesn't
make
make
sense.
any sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew at an early, so I'd always been interested in, this more integrative, like functional approach, just because it just like my critical thinking self, it just, like otherwise didn't make any sense. I forget where I was going with that. So I always,
You kind of
looked
felt
at
like
things.
you kind of had already had that in your back burner. And then this
Yeah,
like when you're
this is
healing, now you
so,
want to,
yeah. So
right.
I guess what I was saying is that I couldn't, so people are like, oh, do you use functional medicine? Because, I have a primary care practice. We're not a functional
Mm-hmm.
med practice, right? And so do we do pure functional medicine? I mean, and I would say, do we run, when we intake a patient, do we run like thousands of dollars worth of tests and do it at once? Like most functional med practices would do? No.
No, we don't.
And in fact, I don't really, I advertise that we're a root cause, but I don't know how to, and my providers don't know how to function in any other way, but to look at root cause when yes, we need to use medications and things while we're, doing this, this kind of investigation, or maybe sometimes people always need medication depending on what the issue is, but we're always, like looking for and trying to address root causes and other things I don't know how to practice in any other way. I don't know how to have that knowledge and then not
Mm-hmm.
use it,
Yeah, no.
and so certainly that carries over um, to like the emotional, because if we have like stored emotions that we don't express or that we don't, that like they stay with us and they cause symptoms in the body, like there's a ton of research on this. This isn't whack-a-mole,
Yeah, yeah.
stuff just because, mainstream hasn't accepted it, or, doesn't mean it's not, that it's not,
Adequate or
yeah,
real or useful.
yeah, that doesn't mean it's not real, right?
Yeah.
So, um,
I think it's like having these conversations with individuals, obviously seeing the research, but also that, things coming into light to see that this does also work. Let's see, outside the box. It's not just outside the box thinking per
let's use
se,
it,
but yeah.
use it together. And I think the problem here is, the medical model, which we're advanced practice nurses. So we're trained in the
Medical model.
nursing model, right?
Nursing model,
Yeah, we're
medical
trained
model.
in the
Yeah.
nursing model, but we, generally the system that we operate in is the medical
Yeah.
model, right? Which is a
Mm,
very disease-centric approach. It's also a very paternalistic approach, meaning, me doctor, like as a doctor or as a nurse practitioner, the idea is that I know better than you,
you. Mm,
right? That
yeah.
I need to seek advice in order for, like, if I'm having, chest pain, or I'm having this like pain in
Feeling.
my musculoskeletal, like I've been having this past summer, I need to go seek the expertise of, this person in a position of power to tell me what's wrong with me and how to fix it. That's a paternalistic approach. That's not how I practice, because I believe that I don't heal anyone. I am simply a guide. I provide education, I provide support. But the only person that can heal you is you,
You. That's
right?
beautifully said.
Yeah, but this model that we operate in,
Hmm.
that's threatening,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
right?
we're trying to do things differently just in general with our businesses and have the conversations more. And I'm hoping that whether this podcast and us as, individuals and providers, that we're getting the message out to individuals and saying, this isn't the answer is not just one way. You don't just
Yeah.
come to me because of that. You come to me because we're going to discuss and it's a whole approach.
Yeah, no, in fact, at our practice and our website, we signal against that. If you just want a doctor who's going to tell you what to do, we're not the right practice for you. I openly say that on our website. Um, so I think it's important to talk about it, but I think the most important thing, because I could not have been able to help people from at this level had I not gone through this this process and this journey myself. So really, I think the most important thing is for, because I think, especially as nurses, I see that, I mean, we all have trauma. By my definition, everyone has trauma,
Yes. Yes, I
Um,
agree.
and it's so important that we do our own personal emotional work so that we can then, because we can't help people through something that we haven't, um, if we're at this low level of consciousness, right, we can't help, we can't help someone through,
Because
because
you
we
don't know what you
haven't,
don't know,
right, we
right?
haven't advanced. Like if you talked to me a couple of years ago, I mean, like it was uncomfortable for me to talk to patients about their emotions and stuff
Mhm.
because I wasn't comfortable with my own emotions, right? Like,
Right, right.
and so, yeah, I think really, these truths, that I've learned, they come from within, and we all have access to this, right? Like, I really believe when, I'm not a religious person. I would consider myself a spiritual person, but I was raised as Baptist, I guess. But I guess what is the phrase? The king that's in the Bible, the kingdom of heaven is within, right? And what that means to me is that God is with it. We are all God. Like that, we all have a God self, right?
Yeah.
And that's that part of us that's connect, that is source, right? We all have
That is
source
source. Yeah. And
energy.
always
Yeah.
trying to within. I always talk about it within. It's
Yeah.
whatever that is for you. I don't have a name for you. I don't,
It
and
doesn't it doesn't matter, right? But the
no,
point
it doesn't.
is, we all have that capability and we all have access to that truth and that wisdom and that knowledge if we're willing to do our work and reconnect with it and access it. So many of us are so disconnected. And I think, like the nursing profession, for instance, probably selects for people that, it selects for people that can compartmentalize and, because how can you deal with someone that's,
Sick.
sick, or they're, dying of cancer on a daily,
Mhm.
but you've got, and so it selects for people who can easily do that. And while that may be a good adaptation for that work environment, that's not being disconnected and compartmentalized is not a healthy way to live,
Yeah.
um, so
In the last 2 years, what have you been well, I mean, obviously you've been talking
yeah,
about your grief. What have
yeah.
you used particularly in your mindful way to kind of grow?
Well, I mean,
And
I
even as a
think,
mom, I mean, you're a mom too, trying to
well,
grow through a lot of things. I
I mean,
commend you, and it's a lot.
yeah, no, I mean, I think so. I mean, what it boils down to, right, is, I mean, I could tell you, so really the therapy that I used to do that wasn't that helpful was like talking about the things that were going on in my life and
Hmm.
like, it's more like it all boils down to, because like the therapy I do now, it's like, oh, what I'm feeling. What are you feeling? Oh, I feel some pressure in my chest. Okay, well, what do you think that, what is that? What is that feeling? What is that part? I like, I do IFS too, internal family systems work. So it's part work. So we all have these different parts, right? It's about
Hmm.
connecting them, like one part might be, my like 5-year-old child. That's like me as a 5-year-old, like grieving, that's, maybe sad because I didn't have someone there for me, whatever it is. So what is that part feeling? What does that part want to say? And it's kind of like you go along and collect all your parts and integrate them. So I really love IFS and NARM, neuroaffective relational modeling, is another modality I really like. But I mean, really, they're all trauma based. It's about getting in your body and
Hmm.
connecting with your body. Because that's the thing, and I teach my children, the mind will play tricks on us, but the body never lies. The mind it will rationalize, it'll tell you one thing or another, but the body will always, it never lies, it'll always tell you the truth. So it's, about connecting with and feeling what your body is saying. So really the core of it for me, right, is I had an intense, probably no one would ever have known this about me, like externally, right? I didn't internally understand this about myself. One day I had an experience, kind of in an altered, state of consciousness where I became aware of all of my unconscious thoughts that I had about myself. And they were terrible things that I would not even, like, I didn't even know I could think of things I would never like thought of my worst enemy, and they were, those what were the thoughts that I was thinking about myself, but it was totally not conscious. Um, and so really, so I realized that I had an intent, like I not only did I not love myself, but I hated myself. And it's kind of a long story where
That's
you can
really
get into
hard.
transgenerational stuff, into where how all of that,
But you're writing a
where that
book.
comes
Are you
from.
putting it in your book?
So, I've got the business book that I need to finish editing and get that out. But,
I'm so sorry.
my interests have just changed. But yeah, no, I actually have a title of a memoir. If I will write that, it's just it's when.
Down the road.
Um,
Sorry
yeah,
to
so
cut
it's
you.
no worries. So, I mean, it's just been, I mean, if I want to boil it down, I mean, there's a lot of things there, but if I want to boil it down, it's the process of going from, really self-hatred to self-love and self-compassion, right?
Love it.
And I call it, and coming home to myself, I spent, most of my life, silencing myself, not saying no when I didn't even understand that that I had the power to say no. Intellectually, of course, I understood. But at a core soul level, I thought that I had to, you know, um, basically trade my no, for instance, for love from my parents growing up, or acceptance, or whatever it was. Um,
I can
and
understand that. Like I can relate to that.
yeah,
I always try to be the perfect kid, or I never knew what
mhm.
boundaries were for
Yep,
me.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
a
I had
lot
no
of my
idea.
processing was
Yeah.
understanding like a boundary was okay.
Hmm.
So I mean
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yep,
that was
been
just
been
like, oh, I
been
have to put a
been through
boundary.
that. Yeah.
That's the only way I'm gonna heal.
I
Okay.
yeah, I had no idea what boundaries were, right?
Yeah, that was
Um,
part of it. Um,
um,
it's a
so yeah,
lot.
so that's kind of it, so going through that kind of evolution and process, which is like, I mean, that's a
Pretty
huge
intense.
transformation. Yeah, no, it's definitely very intense, and it's a lot of work. And like I said, a while back, I think that we're always um, on that journey. But um, and I've had a lot of great, not only great talk therapists, but I really love craniosacral therapy, breath work. Is that, I was like, this horn, is that you? I was like, is that one of my
Sorry.
kids?
No, it's on my end. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no
How did
worries.
you
Yeah.
navigate this intense, transition the last couple of years where you're trying to heal
Hmm.
and be a mom? Like I would have to say, like this past year, trying to go through some of my things, I
Yep.
struggled. I really struggled trying to get through my physical ailments and my physical stuff. When I was doing really well, oh my God, I had years of like, okay, I've got my therapies, got my things.
Hmm.
How did you cope with some of that? Because I know I struggled, and I mean
Yeah, I think
I've
it's,
gone through, but gotten better.
yeah, I mean, I think it's, I totally understand that. And I think it's important, it's like, I can't just drop everything. I've got businesses that I'm running. I've got
Right,
kids
right.
that need,
How'd you keep it
attending and all
together?
that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's asking for help, right? And also understanding that you don't have to keep it together, right?
Yeah.
I allow my children to see when, like when I'm upset and crying or sad, and I say, mommy, what's wrong? And I'm feeling sad, right? We use that language with our kids, because I want them to know that it's okay. Like, I don't want them to ever feel, as I did growing up, that like those emotions, those that they are not okay, like, in order to feel joy and happiness, we have to be able to also experience sadness and grief, and there's been moments where I've experienced and I just allowed sadness, just deep sadness to wash over me. And then lo and behold, that washes away, dissolves away. And what shows up in its place is
Mhm.
joy,
Right.
bliss. I think there's a quote by Joseph Campbell, any emotion felt fully is pure bliss, and that's true. We have this emotion response that if you just allow it rather than try to push it away, which is what most people do, which is what we do with medications, we numb it, or with alcohol or with food, or with exercise, we use all of these things to run away and numb our emotions. But if we would just allow the emotion, it really only lasts like 90 seconds or something, I think, is the physiological response to that. And then it just kind of, if we allow it, then it just fades away. But if we push it down, then it just gets louder and louder and louder and louder.
And manifests into all of these items. Have you been on a yoga mat a lot then?
I have not. Yoga has not been one of the things, and actually meditation, I've tried meditation in the past. I haven't gotten into that. I bet I would, I would.
But you like hiking. You hike a lot.
That, Yeah, I do hike. I try to get out in nature. Acupuncture, craniosacral. If you find a good craniosacral therapist, in particular, I've found emotional release craniosacral to be very helpful.
Everybody's got something, whatever works for you.
But just knowing that there's so many other modalities out there to help you beyond just like traditional talk therapy and or a traditional medical, provider, that if you're suffering from something like anxiety, depression, and I would also argue that for most physical diseases, it's important to be using different modalities that access this emotional part. Shamanic healing. Even I've worked with a shaman. Like there's a great shaman in Austin who also has a PhD in neuroscience. Like she's a badass.
That's so cool.
So there's just so many different modalities to help you, and that have been around for like thousands of years. So, I heard someone say the other day, well, I don't really, because someone had called, these other things, alternative or complementary approaches.
That's why that's why I'm so adamant about saying integrative.
That's tradition, like really like Ayurveda and shamanic, like these things are traditional medicine, and these other things are alternate. They're new by that standards, right? So like I went to an Ayurvedic practitioner not long ago, and I was just like floored by all the information she was able to gather just by looking at my tongue. And the reason I went
to
her
tongue and your pulse.
Yeah, like my tongue's fucked up, guys. Like my tongue's been, looking like terrible since I was a kid. Like, and I'll, no traditional, medical doctor can tell me what it is. It's like, oh, this is. I mean, I was just like, whoa. Would have been nice to have this information 30 years ago. So there's just lots of different, and I think it's important to be open to that. Heck, I refer patients now to the ones that I feel will be open, right? It's important that you meet patients where they are, right?
At this point,
but patients that are looking for additional help outside of, what I can offer to them, because I can't, this is such a what I've learned through this process is that, we think, those of us in this medical, paradigm, think that we know everything there is, that we know so much about the body, and and what I've come to realize is what we know is so small, it's almost laughable. We know nothing basically. And it's so much better for your patients if you can have that humility to accept that, right? Because then you're open to all these other, things. So I send patients that I think would benefit and are open to it, because you're not going to benefit if you're not open to it, right?
You're right. You have to have the acceptance.
I would refer them to, I've referred people to the shaman or to craniosacral or,
acupuncture I talk to people about Rolfing. I don't know if you've even heard of that. So that one. So it's like, I have to see who can kind of fit for the most part, there's different things that will, it depends upon the patient, right?
Exactly. And I always say hey, this might for the craniosacral therapy, this is gonna, she's a little, this might seem a little out there to you, but, because I know me 5 years ago, I would have been like, what the hell? And it might feel uncomfortable, like, but allow whatever comes up for you, allow it, know that you're safe, and just go with it. And you're going to get the most out of it that way, um, because it's easy, because I can empathize, right? Because I know that the me, a few years ago would have been like, this is wacky, hippy dippy tree
Yeah.
hugging stuff, right?
Right. Right.
Um, but now, as more of a whole person
Yeah.
connected to that inner knowing and that, that big T truth, right? I know that no, these things, totally make sense and, have um,
They have a place in our health as a whole,
100%.
like, and
Yeah.
it's just having the conversations with you and one of my and other people and listening to their stories and knowing that like we need more out there. I mean, and it's happening and we're discussing
Hmm.
it. It's not a the one set fix. And I hope that through your journey that, I mean, obviously we're all growing, you're still processing and dealing with things,
Yep.
and
Yep.
you're going to be a mom again,
Yep.
um what is one major takeaway recently as through your process
Uh-huh.
lately and through your business that you would say has helped you the most? Or is it just kind of like talking about this and getting things out? You know,
Um, One
I don't know
takeaway.
if it's a one thing or, I feel like it's probably a lot right now. So
Yeah, I'm trying to, the biggest lesson for me over the course of this has been surrender, right? Um,
that's big.
Life is so much better if we just surrender. And again, that kind of harkens to what's going on in the world right now. There's just
Yeah.
this sense that, hey, we can control COVID and we can control all these things through these, public health initiatives, et
Right.
cetera. And control is an illusion, right? It's
Yeah.
an illusion that like maybe as a child that was adaptive to, okay, well, if I try to like, if I behave in a certain way and I'm perfect, then like maybe my parents will love me, right? Like there's this
Hmm.
sense that because a child is egocentric, they think, oh, well, if my parents aren't happy, I'm the cause. And,
Yeah.
um, and so we learned and try to control, but that's not
False.
how the world works, right? So really life is just, if you can just, like the pain that I was having and the fatigue, the instinct, right, from the old pattern that I had from a child was, let me just work harder, push through it, ignore it, push it away. But really the lesson, my craniosacral therapist, I saw her about a month ago, and she said, well, what if, things aren't always what they seem they are. The fatigue isn't, maybe you just need to surrender, like lay on the couch all day, surrender
Hmm.
to it, allow it, right? So it's about, and then because sometimes these things just want to, it's like the same thing with the emotions. They just want to be heard. It's your body sending, so just surrender, allow it, I really do believe that the universe, I've tried to control so much of my life to, to reach particular goals and outcomes. And if I had just, and what I do now is just surrender instead of trying to control and force something. I surrender to what's happening, right? And what I found is that, when I let go of things, then the universe brings me something that's even bigger than what I could have even imagined, even
Yeah.
bigger and even better. And this whole, we bought a ranch recently, and you know, um, and that whole like evolution of that, like I just allowed, there were several places where, for instance, we almost, we were negotiating the house, and the dude was like, no, that roof doesn't need, it's got another 10 years, even though it's leaking. I'm like, hey, I'm not paying, the old me would have been like, oh, fuck, I'll just pay,
Hmm.
I'll take his price, and I won't negotiate on it, because I want to be in this, I want to be back in Texas, and my kids need to be school, and,
Hmm.
I want to have a place there. And I would have like try to control to force the outcome that I wanted. But instead I said, I had this trust that I will find the right place, we'll
Yeah.
find the right house, that the thing that's best for me will happen if I just let go.
Yeah.
And so I said, you know what? Fuck that. Fuck, you know, I'm not paying premium dollar for a house with a, you know, fucking leaking roof.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and so I said, so we terminated the contract. And you know what happened? And my husband's like, yeah, you know, he was totally on the same page because he's been doing this work with me. You know, we've been doing this individually, but together.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And uh,
And
anyway,
so did you found a new space, a new
so the next day, the dude, you know, responded and he took the offer that he would, you know, he changed his
oh, he
mind,
lowered his
right?
price.
Exactly. So I got what I want because I was willing to walk away. We were willing
Yeah.
to
You
walk away
didn't attach
because
yourself
I
to the
knew,
outcome.
correct. Yep, exactly. So it's, you know, right. Because the attachment is the source of all suffering,
It
right? The
so is.
Buddhists.
Yeah. And I
Yep.
really had a hard time learning that. And I'm still learning, but I
Yep.
mean, learning that behavior of myself and my patterns. And like I
Yep.
said, 12 years it's been, but 12 or 14 years, but I work on it daily because it's a conversation of the surrendering, and I call it my strength within. And as I talked,
Yep.
and I very much appreciate and value, and I almost want to cry a little bit, the fact that you've taken a lot of vulnerability and your
Yeah.
time for
Yeah.
us. And
Yeah.
I don't want to keep it anymore because I value your precious time with you and your family and your work. It's beautiful how much you've shared with the audience, and I would love for you to be on the show again, and or
Yeah.
in other
Happy to
aspects.
do it.
I work with you plenty, and so to have them, see more of you. So I just wanted, before we say,
Yeah.
goodbye for the show, is there one quote or one little statement that you'd like to say before the day this is over?
You know, everybody's afraid. This is something that I teach I guess it would be two things, right? It's what I said earlier. You know, the mind will play tricks on you, but your body never lies. So connecting, I find that it's really important to always connect and check in with my body. And I teach my children that. And then the other thing that I teach my children that I've try to live by, especially now, is, you know, we're all afraid. Fear is normal, right? And like yesterday, I had some interchange with someone, and like fear did come up, but it's courage is action in the face of fear. It's taking action anyway. You know, it's not allowing that fear to control you. So I think that's also pretty precious, or prescient for, you know, the time we live in, which is that we're all afraid, and that's normal. But
Yeah.
it's important, you know, to take action in the face of that fear. That's courage or bravery, you know, and that's important. You know, and I try to live by that in my actions, right? I don't always live up to that, and I haven't always in the past, but you know, that's definitely my guidepost.
It's beautiful. No,
Yeah.
it's beautifully said. I
Yeah.
so appreciate you being on, and thank you for sharing your
Thank you for
space and
having
time
me.
with us. And I
Yeah.
look forward to you being on again, and just
Awesome. I'd love to
chatting.
do
And
it.
how can people reach out to you? Because you have plenty of businesses. You've got
Yeah.
ultra person. So please let's get that in. I'll have them in the show
Okay.
notes also, but I want
Yeah.
you to tell that too.
Yeah, so I have the American Academy of Nurse Entrepreneurs. I've got courses and some, you know, online content
Help
for
me
nurse.
out a ton.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad, for nurse practitioners that are interested in starting their own business. And then, you know, of course, my practice in Texas is UltraPersonal Healthcare. I've got two other NPs, you know, working with me that are doing most of the patient care these days. And yeah, I mean, I'm on all the social media outlets, and I can make one promise, and that is that I will always speak my truth. So,
That's
you know,
awesome.
some people don't like that, but you know,
Well,
I will not be silenced.
well, I'm glad you're speaking your truth, whether people want to, everybody has a voice, and that's the most important.
It's important
Um,
that you use your voice. Absolutely.
well, it was great having you on, and thank you so much for your time again. All
Yep.
right, thanks.